All right, let's get started. Welcome to the second webinar hosted by the Nelson Mandela University as part of the Hydrogen Knowledge Platform. Today's webinar is about green hydrogen against the background of the automotive industry in Nelson Mandela Bay. My name is Femke Brandt. I am one of the facilitators of today's webinar, and I am from a company called Beneficial Technologies, which is based in Johannesburg. And I'm facilitating today together with Ronald Wessel, who will be most engaging with you in the chat box. Today we have three panel guests that we will engage in a talk show kind of interaction around the question of what does it mean that in Nelson Mandela Bay, there is a newly emerging economy, namely the green hydrogen economy, and there is a very well-established 100-year-old automotive components and services manufacturing industry already present. What does this mean in terms of the available and present skills in the region? The session is recorded and will be made available by Nelson Mandela University on their YouTube channel. And the platform really aims to provide a discussion forum for stakeholders in the Eastern Cape, but also beyond, and engage each other on key themes in the green hydrogen sector or around the green hydrogen sector. We hope to provide accessible and appropriate thought leadership on all sorts of green hydrogen related themes in the Eastern Cape. So a month ago, we had the first webinar that really presented an overview of where green hydrogen is at the moment. And today we hope to have a more focused discussion specifically around skills and jobs. One of the topics that has definitely raised much attention in the country. So we would very much welcome participants to engage in the discussion and to be part of the discussion today. But I will first introduce to you the three panel guests that we have invited that you are welcome to engage with. So we've invited Ibrahim Takolia, who is the founder and CEO of Green Hydrogen Solutions. That's a company focused on applying technology to the implementation and deployment of green hydrogen globally. Ibrahim has significant hydrogen and gas project development experience focused on the value chain, including regasification and liquefaction systems, technologies applicable to hydrogen and gas logistics, as well as pipeline systems. He's led projects and deal financing, business development, government and regulatory agency relationships, and deal execution teams covering legal, financial, and technical considerations. Thanks, Ibrahim, for joining the call today, and we're very much looking forward to hear some of your perspectives. Our other two panel guests are Enver Wessel and Johan Fourie from the Kuga Development Corporation in Nelson Mandela Bay. Enver Wessel is a training manager at CDC. He has over 20 years of experience in the skills development fields. He made significant contributions and has expertise with successful implementation of numerous impactful skills development programs in the region as part of the Kuga Special Economic Zone. Many of these projects have improved the employability of beneficiaries. So Enver has been involved with various skills development initiatives and regards youth development as a significant step forward in understanding and harnessing future skills. So welcome, Enver. And together with Enver, we also have today as a guest Johan Fourie, who is a senior business development manager for the Kuga Development Corporation, and he has been the account manager for the Hive Hydrogen project in the zone for the last 4 years. He's also worked very long with CDC for over 25 years in different positions, ranging from labor and business management services to human resources, IT, and business development. He's well versed with hydrogen projects and has an intimate understanding of the skills aspects related to this project. He's had exposure to large green energy projects and prominent players in the field. So I would like to start by inviting Ibrahim Takolia to share with us your perspective on the green hydrogen sector and its relation to the automotive sector in terms of the skills availability in the region and in the country.
Thanks, Femke. Thanks for the introduction. Delighted to speak. We had to think about that in a little bit more detail when we worked on a project with Femke and Ronald as part of the GIZ, looking at community engagement processes. So one of the key things that you need to determine in a project is how does that affect communities and what are the skills, because there's indirect impact, which is if you have an operation, there will be impact on the economy positive because of all the people who work there. But then also, how do you encourage that you can have local employment, and what are the skills that are needed for hydrogen projects? So in the different elements of hydrogen, there's the renewable energy space, and that's wind and solar. And there's a lot of work that SIPFIA and the Wind Energy Association have done on the potential for job creation in those areas. And that is significant, and that goes broader than just green hydrogen. But what we can focus on here today is maybe, what are the elements that if you set up a hydrogen plant and you then beneficiate hydrogen, either you compress it or convert it to a carrier molecule or do other things with it, what are the job creation opportunities around that? And that was a very interesting question that we sought to answer when we started to look at it as how would it benefit a community? So one of the things is, if you look at an electrolyzer and what is an electrolyzer, it's it's composed of certain systems and subsystems. So you have the electrolyzer system itself, and that's a stack, and then what they call a balance of plant that produces the hydrogen. So the stack is really where the magic happens. So if you think of H2O, the H's and the O's get separated in the stack. In the balance of plant, there's some equipment, it's piping, there are pumps, there are separators, there's electronic components, and there's a lot of touch points if you actually open up an electrolyzer and look into it. And I remember in that project, when we went through, we actually said, what's in an electrolyzer? It's all those type of things. So what do they have in common? They have quite a few things in common with the vehicle industry. And if you think about an internal combustion engine, or even as we move to EVs, there's a lot of subcomponents, and the engine is the heart of the system. So in the same way, the stack is the heart of the system, and then you have the balance of what they call the balance of stack, which makes the electrolyzer. So looking at it from that way, the stack is very specialized, and it's usually where the IP of different organizations sit. So if you talk to different manufacturers, what they're really selling is this IP around how they actually produce the hydrogen in the stack, which is where I would say the magic happens. And you find there are various manufacturers, and generally South Africa is starting to look at that in terms of manufacturing locally some of the subcomponents from stacks. The rest of the systems, the piping and everything else, we think can be supported with some of the skills from the vehicle manufacturing industry, maybe side skilling and upskilling. And then if you have compression, There's again, it's a mechanical process, so also we don't see significant challenges. And then if you go into ammonia, that's more processing. But South Africa has had 5 refineries. I think a few of them will close down, but we do have the expertise to do processing. There's people from Secunda. There are lots of chemical engineers in the country. So I think in all the big international engineering firms as well. So I think we can localize, and there are various touch points with the vehicle industry, mainly in the hydrogen production side. And there could be some touch points if you create the molecule. So I think that's a good opening statement so that other people can have a chance to speak as well.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you for providing that input to start with, that there are certain touch points where the vehicle industry and the green hydrogen production industry really meet. And I hope we'll go more into detail into where they then exactly meet, or what that means in terms of exactly what jobs with what kind of training and educational requirements that comes. So before I hand over to the Kuga Development Corporation, I wanted to say that the automotive industry, like I said, has a very long history in Nelson Mandela Bay, and this is why it makes sense to focus on this specific industry. Well-known brands like Volkswagen and Isuzu are very present in the region. But we also know that there's a change underway in the industry, and this change is really driven by the requirements to do something about climate change and carbon emissions. So there is a starting of thinking about and actually assembling, for example, new energy vehicles, but also in general, the renewable energy sector is undergoing a lot of developments. Let me just stop sharing here. So the green hydrogen sector is one sector that is emerging as a result and in response to those needs to produce fewer or no carbon emissions anymore in industries like the automotive and components manufacturing industries. So the question really of what this means for the Nelson Mandela base is very much about what then happens to all these all the experiences and existing and present skills and knowledge and even infrastructure in the transition to this different type of economy. So this is why we've also invited the Kuga Corporate Development, the Kuga Development Corporation, because we know that you have a long-term experience in doing skills development and working with companies who are based in this specific industry. So I would like to ask now either Johan or Enver, could you please answer the question, what skills are present in the region as a result of this very long established automotive and component manufacturing industry in the region?
Okay, I mean, Enver can come in also just now. I think that the important thing for me is to say is obviously the area has got very good skills in the automotive industry, and we've got about 150 first-year suppliers, and we've got some of the most OEMs here with FAW, Bike, Volkswagen, Ford does some work here. So there's right from the automotive manufacturing, even from semi-knockdown build up like the FAW does, and then the first year suppliers going right from people who does harnesses, which will be translating back into the solar industry because they need daisy chains to link up their solar panels and all of those kind of things. So some companies can easily fit into those kind of things. I think that there is a fit to a certain extent, and there's not a fit for another level. The most important thing for me is to look at this hydrogen in South Africa as probably a startup from production and exporting ammonia and methanol, because that's the easiest to export, either for a fuel type or for the electricity industry, and for coal companies and that kind of things. And most likely the takeoff, from what we've seen, the takeoff go to Europe and Japan, and that will probably be a 5-6 year phase approach. Later on, we will then go over to the more localization of hydrogen, which is a very important aspect. There, the auto industry is going to now come into a very big play, because California, in terms of the San Francisco, has just opened a hydrogen fueling station for 30 automotive trucks, which is working. This is not a pilot, it's a working a program, which is then obviously where the automotive industry skills will come to the fore, where at the moment we're talking a lot about, yes, there's metals guys and there's metals components in it, there's pipes, there's flanges, there's all of these kind of things, and there's a lot of innovativeness in this industry. We've just looked at building up a new battery car, and it's quite amazing how adaptable the industry is. There's people that does quite a lot of work that can be adjusted to this. I think we'll have to unpack it, because it's also going to be about the standards that is acceptable. A very high standard, a Linde or Afrox that will operate the Hive plant has got very high standards that they set up. So to jump, we must think now that the hydrogen project here will start off as a project that will be exporting. They'll buy some electrolyzers in from the big companies in the world. They won't risk now to just bring in like a locally manufactured thing if there was no track record in it. In fact, all the things that they said is about a 10-year track record that they need as example for that. So those kind of things will happen. So you will set up your first phase of the plant. If there's enough volume, for instance, if the plant uses batteries and that kind of things, then if there's enough volumes, then you will start attracting certain companies like BYD, Topsoe, or those type of companies to your country to say start manufacturing, and hopefully they can then subcontract to the Tenneco's and those kind of things to make heat shields and things that they're already doing, but for that specific industry then. So I think cover it in an hour is quite a lot. But as I said, it's 2 phases to the approach. That yes, there's some skills that can be going over and will be very useful. Some of the other skills will be adapted to some things. I think we will get eventually people building battery cells and that kind of things in this country. And there's also the other skills that's coming from the solar industry. It's not only the automotive industry, but the solar industry will have battery management systems, and there's companies like Hubble in PE that is doing very well in those systems. So I think there is quite a wide range of overlap to a certain extent, but when it goes into the localization, I think that's when more the automotive industry will come to the fore as a bigger player also.
Thank you very much for that, Johan. Enver, would you also like to answer the question around the present skills in the region due to the long-established automotive industry?
I thank you for the opportunity, Femke. Look, I just need to take a step back maybe onto this. Traditionally, the Eastern Cape and Gqeberha has always been an automotive hub for the country as well. But the world is changing, and that was part of your introductions. And I don't want to focus too much on hydrogen. My perspective is slightly a little bit different. And I want to talk about green energy and coming through very strongly. And what has happened and what has come to fore, there's been our competition of skills coming through. Not just the competition of critical skills, but also an integration of skills and also a reskilling of skills. So these two industries needs to find a way to see how we can actually best develop the future skills in these sectors. And this obviously plays a role not just on an HET level, but also an FET level. And the basis to all this is the support that is giving a value chain from your school level, which is actually the most critical. And that's where my drive to the conversation is that there needs to be a creation of a value chain from a school level point of view to FET level point of view, especially even the STEM system that's coming through as well. To make the future generation much more aware what opportunities is laying ahead and what future opportunities is laying ahead and what possible opportunities is laying ahead. We don't have all the answers here. So there's still a constant evaluation and evolve. The system is evolving consistently. And I think we need to focus, and that's where my drive is coming. The third aspect I want to throw in, I see today we're discussing green energy and automotive. But a very close association to both sectors is the development of the ICT sector as well. ICT sector is going to fold into all of those industries and the future development of skill sets in the Eastern Cape. So yes, my drive today is that mostly around a value chain to supply the different industries and how we can guess and how we can sit together and work a best suit in the development of those skills. The sectors basically in training is developed from level 1 to level 3 to 4. You've got the more harder skills and the more, you call it harder skills development. And then obviously you've got your level from level 4 to 5, where it takes you to the FET level and to another level. And then obviously you're sitting with HET as well, higher education. And another aspect I also want to throw is I think the conversation today is stemming from hydrogen to automotive or green energy to automotive, but there's also a parallel and interlink between the skill sets, especially when you talk about skills development from engineering, chemical, transportation, operational. There's many overlapping skills that can be developed and reskilled. So yes, that's my drive today, and I would like to have a conversation about that. Part of today's discussion as well is that we also don't have all the answers yet because many of these things are still in process of being developed. So yes, that's my introduction today, and we don't have too much time because we can talk the whole day about this, but I think that can be the focus here is how do we get the future learners to know about the skills coming through? And I've got another aspect is now you also have the learner that have exited the school level that is between the ages of 18 and 35, and that has never had the opportunity to get a meaningful job, that how they can be brought into the system to develop further as well. So yes, I think that's my contribution to that.
Thanks, Enver, for that contribution. Indeed, a lot of different issues I think have already been raised and are emerging. I would like to invite everybody in the room to please post your questions and comments in the chat so that we'll address them once we open up. You are also welcome once we open up to just raise your hand and actually speak. Then we would ask that you please also introduce yourself very shortly. So please post your questions and comments in the chat, then we will definitely get to them. But for now, I wanted to invite Ibrahim actually to respond to the speakers from the Kuga Development Corporation and talk a little bit more about those touch points that you are already seeing, and maybe also now in relation to what Johan and Enver have also put on the table.
Yes, yeah. So what I was referring to is not initially not so much the manufacturing, but the operations and maintenance of the plant. So this is once the plant is operational. In the first stage, a lot of the equipment will be imported. That is understood. But longer term, there could be localization opportunities. But it's really the sustained jobs once the investments are made. How will that be managed, and can we localize it? And I think that's where we'll be, where the synergies with the vehicle industry would come in. I can share just so sort of an image of what an electrolyzer looks like. Because a lot of times people, I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's coming. Yeah, there we are.
So this is, I mean, if you open a cabinet, you know, these are the type of, sorry, this is an actual electrolyzer pilot project we worked on. So it's an alkaline electrolyzer with a fuel cell in Singapore. So this is what it actually looks like. It's a bit rusty because it's at the coast. But this is sort of what what's in there. And that's what I mean when I say that's the actual alkaline electrolyzer. These are the type of components that are in there. And if we scale this up, this is what it will be like for a massive hydrogen production system. So that's where I think, in the operations and maintenance, the people who run the plants, who are on site every day, there's quite a few touch points with the vehicle sector.
And Ibrahim, if I can maybe ask a follow-up question about that. Because if you show an image like that, then I, as a non-technical person, immediately feel like, oh, like what? Do you need a theoretical type of engineering knowledge or degree to work in a plant like this? So I was wondering, can you say a little bit about sort of the level of theoretical knowledge and more practical technical engineering skills that are required in the operation and maintenance of an plant with electrolyzers?
Yeah, so this is alkaline and there's PEM, which is the other technology. This is very small. This is a 25 kilowatt alkaline electrolyzer. When you're talking of the export project, is going to be by a factor of thousands larger. So if you think about how big it will be relative. So where I'm coming from is, so this an electrolyzer, the main heart of the system will generally last, let's say, 80,000 hours. So that's about 10 years. You don't really open that up unless there's a significant fault, and you'll most likely replace that. You'll see it's sealed. But there's a lot of things, because hydrogen is a gas and you're dealing with a liquid that you're converting to a gas. All of these pipes and systems, they need to be constantly checked and maintained. So it's your typical mechanical, electrical engineering type of jobs that would need to be where these people would need to be on site, just checking the systems, making sure it works. The biggest challenge with hydrogen is once the hydrogen comes out of the stack. Remember, you're sitting with a very light molecule that has a high energy density, and the molecule only has value if you can handle it. Now, remember, hydrogen has very high energy density by weight, with very low energy density by volume. And what I mean by that is, if you weigh hydrogen with 1 kilogram, it beats any other fuel. But if you put hydrogen in a meters cubed, because it's so light and it's such a different molecule, you actually get less energy than other equivalent. So that's why you have to compress hydrogen, or you have to convert it. And because it's such a light molecule, the moment it comes out of the electrolyzer, that collection and conversion is the main reason why hydrogen has not taken off for so many years. Electrolysis has been known about for many, many years. It's how you handle and convert hydrogen that has enabled the hydrogen economy to start being thought about and to be developed. So that's that's where we are at the moment. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. I see we now also have a question in the chat by Alex Lenferna, who is a postdoc at the Nelson Mandela University. He writes, he was wondering, given the inefficiency of producing hydrogen compared to direct electrification, how realistic is it to expect green hydrogen to play a major role in transportation? Is there anyone who would like to respond to that question?
I can attempt a response. So, yeah, hydrogen is so if you look at the efficiency of a battery electric vehicle, you are correct. It converts a much higher percentage of the electricity to the wheel, right? But where it gets complicated is that when you have more weight, for example, and you need to carry that more weight, you need a bigger battery. And so what happens is there's a limit to how that could work. So where hydrogen will play a role is in heavy duty vehicles, so trucking, where you need fast turnaround times, heavy loads. There is no replacement for kerosene, so it's probably jet fuels, and then some high temperature heating processes. For the vehicle industry, there will be applications, but it won't be, as sustained as in the, I would say, the vehicle industry. So that's just a comment.
Thank you, Ibrahim. All right, that was helpful, says Alex. Alex, you're making us very curious what your postdoc research is about, or at least I'm very curious. So feel free to also share that or to come online. Sinet, would you like to ask your question? No, we're not hearing you. Okay, so I'll read out your question so long. So Sinet is from Ikegai, working on the South Africa green hydrogen feasibility study. Is the Kuga Development Corporation already engaging with the community to develop the skills agenda? And are there any outreach programs in the Eastern Cape in relation to green hydrogen? That's what she's asking to CDC directly. So Johan Enver, would you like to address that question?
Thank you, Femke. I think for now, the development of skills is always ongoing. And I think we're all in that process of the development of skills. In relation to engagement with communities as well, look, this is also very fresh and early into this process. And I think as the process gets unpacked, we'll reach that point. That's the reason for these forums, is to unpack these things there. And when we get consensus on all these things, then obviously there will be engagement. But that's always a developmental area going forward. So for now, we haven't gone into, especially in relation to the question for green hydrogen, we have not done that yet, but we'll probably get there in the future.
I'll also come in there. From Kuga's side, is we're working on different forums with the Hive project. There's municipal forums, there's a whole lot of different forums that we're working. There was an outreach program by them in the community, which we kind of thought was a little bit premature at the time, because we saw from the questions coming out of it, people were saying, when can we come and stand in the job? Okay, so that was like the challenge. We then decided that we will have a much more, when the project is in phases, when there's readiness, when there's financial closure and all of these kind of things, that we'll start engaging with the communities, because you also don't want to create expectations that people are ready waiting for something and that kind of thing. So one of the reasons is that we've got a very big social program that we're running in the human capital. Enver, Sinead, you're welcome to come and visit to see what we're doing. We set up a system that is dealing specifically with the community. We're having monthly meetings with the community, and we're dealing with the aspects when it's ready to deal with at that stage. I've been with Kuga for 25 years. I've also seen what expectations come from when politicians say there's 200,000 jobs, then outside the building we get 200,000 people the next day. So we've kind of have a very good stability and a good relationship with the community, and this is a practical relationship. It's not like a theoretical relationship. So that's where we are at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, I see Sinet is nodding her head, so I guess you are happy and you have an invitation to engage further. I see, Colin, you are unmuted. Are you wanting to also come in here?
Yes, I'd like to. Just to carry on from where Johannes left off on the community.
Yes.
We did an early engagement. It was a strategic move because the communities always, the first thing they say when you engage with them late is, why didn't you engage with us earlier? So we've done that as a preliminary, just to get some initial opinion. And that was done across all our renewable sites as well as the local sites. And then we have had an initial engagement with Motherwell and Colchester as part of our EIA process or EISA process. And we're currently working together with the GIZ to develop a hydrogen community platform tool to do this, a full community consultation. So we've been quite thorough in making sure we did engage early so they didn't feel they were ambushed at later meetings. We've had the first round, which has been very interesting, particularly learnings around the environmental side, which is obviously a big concern. And it's now being formalized into a full community engagement. And that is obviously because we need to have completed this for our final investment decision process. So we're getting to the time, and according to plan, to do that in the next few months. So very critical, and it's very critical to our partners and funders that we focus on, particularly on the ESG component. So it's become a hot topic, and I think GIZ is leading it in terms of putting out a hydrogen toolkit for community involvement.
Thanks, Colin. And I see we are veering a little bit into the topic of community engagement, which is another very important and key topic in the hydrogen discussion and also on the platform. So just so you know, I think we'll definitely provide more space to engage it also in the other forum and try to today really unpack more around the issue of the skills, the necessary skills and the available skills in the region. Just to make sure that we don't go too much off topic. I see there are more questions in the chat. I see Janet has a question. She's from the Department of Development Studies at NMU, asking if green ammonia is for export to Europe and Japan. What is the comparative advantage of producing it in South Africa? And I assume it will not assist in meeting our carbon emission obligations. Colin, would you like to come in again?
Very much a subject we're currently working really hard on. I think South Africa has obviously a massive role to play. And I just want to rewind a little bit. Last year, just under a year ago, both Toyota in their Chinese side and Ford announced an ammonia-powered vehicles. So it was pointed out earlier that hydrogen is very light and very difficult to transport. Ammonia is obviously more dense and easier to transport in some senses. So there is something to watch out for, is also whether there are going to be more ammonia-powered vehicles. So that's in the first instance. In the second instance, we've just, as early as last week, engaged with a major fertilizer manufacturers in the region, and absolutely seeing that ammonia plays a big role. Green ammonia plays a big role, not only for export, but for internal use, both for explosives but particularly for fertilizers, particularly with things like CBAM in Europe, where we're seeing concern over the use of anything that's not green to export foodstuffs. And what we're doing is trying to find a mechanism to bring the pricing of green ammonia down to parity with blue ammonia, and ultimately with the tightening restrictions around coal and LPG to make it competitive with grey ammonia. And it does count towards South Africa's carbonisation targets totally. So it would make a big impact for South Africa. And, the key factor there is also the marine fuel side where, that will also help. So you almost count that as an export play to a large extent for shipping. But internally, both the green fertilizer and the explosives industry will benefit from this green ammonia production.
Thank you so much, Colin, for answering that question and giving some more insights on the carbon emission obligations or the carbon emission contribution. And I see there's another question in the chat, but I also see a hand. So I would like to invite Thomas to unmute.
Hi, everybody. Apologies for arriving late. I had a prior engagement. Supporting Colin in that comment for the previous question, one of your big issues with regard to green ammonia is financing and who is paying for the financing, which is why there is an export focus often, because the South African economy, there are very small niche areas that can afford green product at the moment. And a strategic approach is often to find foreign off-takers that can then allow you to have your project financed, because the weighted average cost of capital is a function of the stability of the order, so to speak. So maritime shipping and export, although it may be difficult to get an offtake agreement overseas, at least means that your financing becomes cheaper. When you're doing a large-scale green facility, it's capex intense. You need to borrow that money from somewhere, and for many South African companies, that is tricky. And finding that one company that is prepared to pay that green levy can be difficult. So I understand the question. It's just that the question may appear. The answer to the question is more nuanced than the question may appear.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Another question in the chat, actually from Sonia Skrish from Dynamic Recycling, who is a green hydrogen watcher in the Eastern Cape. They are asking, it's actually not quite clear what the skills development and job opportunities are. And a related question is that what does it mean for people who don't have qualifications, and how is it going to benefit those? And I thought, the panelists can, and of course also other participants can answer that question, but maybe specifically for the Kuga Development Corporation, I was wondering if you could speak also to your experience in skills development work in the zone, how you've what your experience is regarding skills development, and the question of jobs and opportunities for people without qualifications. Even if it's not directly linked to green hydrogen, you do have decades of experience in dealing with this question. So maybe you can also speak to that experience.
I'm just going to try and address the Femke. I've sent you a document that was just finished by different departments in South Africa, which I think gives a good idea of the skills. And I'm specifically, Enver can go on with about what we're doing. So if you can share that document, it's actually a national document that you can share to anybody. It will give everybody a very good idea of the skills related to hydrogen. And I think you can also see it goes right from PhD level down to very low levels of what was showed by Ibrahim. There will be fitters and people that can do a whole lot of work that's on those type of equipment and machinery and that kind of thing. So in the maintenance side, there will be opportunities. So you will have a wide range of skills from top level right down to the entry-level skills. So that's what I got from that document. It's not something we've researched yet. We're planning to do some more work on that and unpack with Hive when we come later. Enver, do you want to just talk about the skills development in general?
Yeah, look, Leon, I will just add to that. Look, you actually jumped me ahead on that because I wanted to make the same reference to the report that was released earlier this year. And there's a lot of cross pollination of skills. And I know the topic today is about hydrogen and automotive sector, but one of the, I think if we just take a step back, there's a lot of cross-pollination of skill sets that is required in all industries. And some of the skill sets is already available. I mean, if you refer to transportation, in both industries, logistic professionals, logistics administrators will always be needed. When you're dealing with operations and maintenance, you will always deal with millwrights and mechanical and mechatronics and power line technicians with certain areas. And in certain sectors, especially when it comes to manufacturing, is also now a new level of being self-sustainable via energy through various types of energy-driven mechanisms to regulate the power problem as well. In relation to solar as well, there's things in equipment and manufacturing distribution. There's subsectors that also comes into play, like the chemical side, laboratory side, the software engineering side, the modelers, logistical professionals, equipment transportation, procurement, specialization. So I think when we talk about hydrogen, people got this direct link that it's one thing, but it's actually got a direct impact in many other skill sets as well. And that is part of the document that was in that report. Cross-cutting activities will always refer to policies and governmental institutions, educators and trainers, ICT, as I've mentioned earlier when I started the process, where that the third component to this is very much driven in the ICT space, because all sectors these days does have an ICT development area. And yeah, I can go on into that, but I think there's this notion that everything to this is hydrogen is one specific thing. And I want to thank for the gentleman earlier that highlighted that picture and described the model that was showcased there. And you could look in that component, it refers to raw material as well. There's processing, there's batteries, there's chemists, there's different types of technical value that comes through that as well, and skill sets. So I think the value is still there, the skill sets is there, but it's also just the definition how that skill sets will come through in the new space, in the automotive industry, as well as the green energy space. Well, those are one of the key topical points. Even the automotive, there's a future development how cars will be built as well. So I don't want to go into too much detail. That document is available, as Johannes mentioned earlier, but the skill sets is just defined slightly different, and also future skills. And many of the skills are available, but also needs to be redesigned maybe and redeveloped. But the basics will always be there. And I would, I think Femke through this platform here, maybe, like I said, Johan says that document, it is available and it can be distributed to everybody because it is a national document.
Yes, Enver, the document will be added to the materials on the Hydrogen Knowledge Platform, which is a webpage initiated by the Nelson Mandela University that is exactly meant to share these kind of knowledge documents and insights on the green hydrogen economy and sector. So we are very happy with that contribution, and we'll definitely, it will be shared there. So thanks, Enver, also for that. Maybe I just want to check, is there anyone else in the room? Yes, I see there's a hand up. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello, Femke, and hello, colleagues. Thanks very much for a very interesting session that you facilitated. I wanted to make a couple of points, but just to first of all support the proposition, that one should locate the development of the commercial potential of hydrogen amongst the whole spectrum of green energy technologies and economies that we need to stimulate if we're going to have a massive effect on the decarbonization agenda. So you have to locate it in the context of renewable energies and other green energy carriers that would be crucial for that long-term process of climate mitigation, decarbonization, and also to fuel the economy of the future. And so that for me is an important proposition, simply because there are so many symbiotic linkages between green hydrogen and renewable energy, for example. The one is impossible with the other, by example. And it also then generates the possibility of positive feedback loops between these different energy carrier, sectors that you can stimulate in a particular economy, and you can stitch together different kind of horizontal and vertical advantages also. So it's an entire spectrum of green energy forms that we should then begin to think in our minds as well, of which green hydrogen and its derivatives or carriers would be one aspect. I secondly also agree with a proposition made earlier on, and one of the studies that we're busy with at NMU is actually bringing this out, that in the short term, it seems to me, because of the reason that Thomas Roos had raised also about investment, yield, foreign investment yield, that the best way is to think about this is to first concentrate on booting up an export processing, production and export processing capability for green hydrogen and its carriers, that you can then use then to build up economies of scale and efficiency and infrastructure and investment that you then build up, on the back of which for the medium and long term, you can then begin to look at off-ramps into the local economy for localization, for the absorption of these energy products in different parts of our industry, one of which is, of course, the automotive sector as such. We are busy conducting a study. We're actually almost done with that at the university, looking at how this sequential strategy could work over the next few decades. But the focus indeed, from the evidence that we seem to be generating in the study, suggests this strategy is probably the best, most strategically feasible proposition right now as such. And I think that it makes sense. Of course, one should not look at the strategy in a mechanistic sense, because even in that first phase of having an export processing oriented strategy, you can actually already begin to build off-ramps for localization of your green products into the local economy. And we have one particular example in Buffalo City, in this London IDZ, where there's a potential candidate for limited absorption of some of the product that we can develop there. Yeah. But the point that I wanted to make earlier on was that we should not only get fixated on, as important as it is, on the skills development that we need to develop across these different kinds of energy technologies that we need to support. And in the way that my colleague earlier, I can't remember his name, but I think Enver had enumerated so well, and I fully support that. But we should also add to a wraparound strategy around research and innovation, because a lot of this entails technological innovation for the piping, the electrolyzers, the storage materials that we need to test, the standards and so on. So a whole raft of different kinds of innovations that we can stimulate locally and build a wraparound strategy where you can bring your universities, your CSIRs, your TVET colleges, your private companies involved in R&D, to build a wraparound strategy that works together with your skills development strategy to support these specific nascent and emerging industries emerging as well. So I really think that's important for us to do thinking ahead as well. Thanks very much, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Derek Swartz. And you might have given us even a topic for another platform, namely the research and innovation that's needed and happening in the field of green hydrogen. I see the time is almost up, so I would like to just check with our panel guests if you would like to share any closing thoughts, or one closing thought regarding the relation between the automotive industry in the Eastern Cape and the green hydrogen sector. If there's like one thing that struck you today, or one message that you think people should really remember from this session, what would that be? Ibrahim, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I think hydrogen is an opportunity to sustain some jobs and also do some reindustrialization. But it will take time, and the good thing is that when you look at an industry and you say, oh, you're going to have job creation, you have to say, well, are there people available who would be able to do this? And for us, it's we're not starting from zero. If you compare Namibia or even some of the other countries that are looking at hydrogen, we have Secunda, we have 5 refineries, we've done lots of things in hydrogen, lots of things in energy, and we also have the automotive sector. So all of those things should put us in a good position in terms of being able to support the industry using local talent and create local jobs that are sustainable and relatively middle to high level jobs over the long term.
Thank you so much for this positive outlook. Colleagues from the Kuga Development Corporation, last thoughts from you?
I think, Femke, I think from my side, I think everybody, the hot topic was thrown on the table, and I think it's going to be a good discussion point going forward. In relation to skills development, my passion has always been on that lower level. The learner that before he leaves off to become the future leader in his capacity is that I think we need to spend a little bit more time there. And I think learners needs to be sensitized of what is coming. There's future skills that is coming. There's skills that has not even been developed yet. And there's been a rapid competition of skills among different industries as well. And I think from a certain level, I think learners needs to be sensitized of all the opportunities that's awaiting for them. Because we have been trapped in this traditional way of learning and skill sets and qualifications, but there's future skills coming. And I think the learners need to be a little bit more aware of what is out there. And I'm very, very much excited about it. It's going to unlock many, many different types of opportunities going forward. So yes, that's my closing remarks. Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the panel guests for sharing your insights and your views, but also thank you for everybody who joined the conversation and also contributed with thoughts, experiences, and views. This is really what the platform is meant for. We are happy to announce that the next webinar will be already on Tuesday, 18 June, so that's in 3 weeks. We'll announce shortly what the topic will be and what we will be discussing then. Please also visit the website or the platform that is available on hydrogen.mandela.ac.za. And I wish you all a very good afternoon and a happy Elections Day tomorrow. We will be looking forward to meet with you again, hopefully in 3 weeks.